Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to some very old, very bad writing. This is the first book I ever tried writing, and this was, I think, 7 years ago actually. So, clearly it's not going to be the best, but yeah. So basically the premise of the story is kind of difficult considering there's like no plot, but it's about a half robot named Hazel and her, I guess, adventures as she navigates
First off,
growing
let's
up
talk about this
and
font.
being
So
a
it
half
is
robot.
not ideal for a book.
So let's
There are
get
no
right into
capitals,
it. No lowercase letters. And when I tried converting it back into like a nicer font, half the words were in all caps, half the words were in all lowercase when it was at the start of a sentence. So I'm gonna leave it like this. Sorry if it's hard to read, but mistake one. Disregarding that and the terrible title of the book, let's get reading. I guess I'm just gonna go kind of paragraph by paragraph and then say my commentary on it. So, yeah. Life as a half robot is extremely sad at this point in my life. I feel like I live alone in our huge mansion. My 14-year-old half brother died 4 years ago. My dad works all day and probably all night. I actually don't know who he works for. The few times he comes out, he has had weird, strange objects that I've never seen before. Once he came out and his eye color was different, so I really don't think he even knows what he does. I haven't talked to him for such an extended period of time that I don't remember his voice. I wish I could cry, but being a robot, I can't. I don't usually see my mother because her battery dies every hour if she's not in sunlight. My half-sister is such a genius that she probably lives in space or in another galaxy. She went away the day she was born, but not before giving me a coded message that I still haven't figured out, even in my 11 years of living. I'm 11 years old. My life is lonely, and it will probably always be. So overall, not a terrible first paragraph, but bad execution in my opinion. So it kind of sets up the story. She's a half robot, she lives alone, but then she goes on to say that she doesn't live alone because her dad works there and her mom is at the house. She just can't see her. But yeah, her 14-year-old half brother died 4 years ago. Does that mean he would have been 18? Does that mean he was 10 when he died? Wasn't mentioned. Her sister was such a genius that she lives in space or another galaxy and went away the day she was born. You have to be a different type of genius to leave on the day you were born. Like, I'm just imagining a little baby in space. Like, what was I picturing when I wrote this? I honestly don't know. Another part that's weird is even in my 11 years of living, in parentheses, I'm 11 years old. That's what that means. She only had to say that once. She didn't have to say that she lived for 11 years, so she's 11 years old. But, I don't know. I'm not going to question my 7 years ago self. My life is lonely and it will probably always be. That line, I mean, kind of sums up the whole first paragraph, so not terrible. But overall, it needs way more fleshed out description, so. So this next part talks about her school. She's not allowed to go to school because she's part robot, but she has an education because she goes to like a really high-tech robot school apparently. I don't know why I said that you had to pass a 21 duodecillion page test. I was obsessed with large numbers when I was younger. Work is mind controlled. Okay. I don't know why that has to be the case. If she's a robot, she could probably remember it herself. Yeah, and then thank goodness it's summer. That just skips over an entire year, pretty much. So, since it's summer, she decides to start exploring the mansion that she lives in. So, she wants to find some phenomenal object that can change the future. I'm not sure what that was in my mind, but we'll see, I guess. So, she leaves her room and she decides to start in the storage room. But I guess the mansion's so big that there's an elevator, but it doesn't go up and down, it goes side to side. I didn't mention that in the book, I just remember thinking that. So she goes and searches through her dad's office next. There's the weird time of 20,068 o'clock. Again, I don't know why I liked large numbers like that, but I guess it works. So she goes into the office, she finds electrical outlets. This might be really boring as you can probably read it as I'm doing it, but I don't know how else to film this. So, let's see. She cuts the window with a super pen after hearing a knock at the door. I don't know what a super pen is. It was never described. Um, she finds a map apparently, but there's no time between when she was in the office and when she finds the map. It just says, in the library, I found a book with a map. Did she just go? Did she have that always? We don't know. Then it actually does do a time skip to 1 week later. So she goes back to the office, and in the office, she tries building things. So first she builds a mini computer, then she just looks things up on it, I guess. Then she tries to make a watch, and finally she makes a robot. This is like the inciting incident of the story, I guess. I describe it, he's teal and green, which were my favorite colors back then, and had about a zillion gadgets and screens, again with the large numbers. So she just built the robot, but he ran out of battery already, and she looks inside his battery case and sees that it's the most unique battery ever seen in the history of the world. She built the robot. She knows what battery she put in there, but I guess it's a surprise. So it runs out, and she is best friends with this robot now, so she decides to go and fix him. And that's like the main adventure of the story, is her going to fix this robot, trying to find a duplicate of the battery that ran out. Because she realized that in order to fix the robot, she had to go to a parallel universe and retrieve the duplicate battery from that universe. So then she dies. I don't know. Apparently, she was so sad about that she just evaporated, as robots do. Then she went into the dead world, which is the only place that has actual description. Piano music, food everywhere, pictures on the walls. One was a picture of the tree that she needed to go to explore parallel universes. This is totally ripped off of Norse mythology, by the way. I was not very creative. She sees an evil spirit. Okay. I don't know why there's evil spirits. I guess she is in the dead world. She wakes up and she's in a locked bedroom. So, I don't know what to make of that. And then, wow, she meets her dead brother because she's in the dead world. I guess that makes sense. So she meets her brother and they decide to go out to save the robot together. She has a weird dream that they try to decode, but it doesn't make any sense. Not just because it was a dream, it makes no sense because I wrote it. And so basically her brother mentions that they are going to encounter obstacles on their adventure, which pretty straightforward. It's a fantasy book. So the first one is a lava river. I don't really know what that's supposed to mean. And then I go on to say it's a lake-sized river. Is a lake or a river? I don't think they're decided by their size. Maybe they're decided by shape. I honestly don't know, but I don't think a lake-sized river is the correct way to describe that. So her brother just walks across the lava, whereas she falls into the lava and is suddenly falling through the earth. Then she ends up in a cave, because why not? She creates a passage in the cave so they get out of it, and then they end up in space, because they were ejected from the cave somehow. And of course, who do you think she meets in space? Her sister! All of these pieces are falling together way too easily. So she meets her sister, and then her sister has a magic potion. Apparently she's magic, and takes them to the tree, the world tree, that will help them get to a parallel universe. I'll skip over a lot of this just because it's really insignificant and none of the lines are good enough for me to point out. But she goes into a sea world, wrong world, no battery. Then they go into the parallel universe. So she goes back to the living world after finding the battery in the parallel universe and puts it back into the robot, who comes alive and says that he needs human help to stop malfunctioning. So apparently, even though he has the battery, he's still broken. Hazel decides she has to help him again, but she doesn't know how. So it says that she had to use the SeaWorld question emerald. It never describes what that is or how she got it. I'm assuming she got it. Oh, okay. So it says she got it in the SeaWorld, but it never says what a question emerald is, really. It just answers questions. So she finds it in her pocket. They ask the question about how to save the robot, to which the question emerald says you need to be the robot. You have to put your soul into the robot. This is where it starts getting really weird, because she's half robot and now her half robot soul is going into a full robot. So after she becomes the robot, she just does robot things. She goes to the park, she plays basketball, she skateboards, she gets new tools and skills and learns how to fight. She wakes up to a radio system playing, which she also didn't know was in the robot even though she built him. I don't know. Okay, we're nearing the end, finally. So, once she trains the robot, she hears yelling outside and she sneaks out the door, realizes that there are these monster things that are also inspired by mythology, like really inspired. They're basically sirens, but they live on land, and they were singing, and she got blinded by a laser red light thing, and she keeps hearing voices in her head, but she couldn't place them. So then, after that, her siblings come and find her, and they explain that there must be a monster outside, and that together they have to stop it. And the end of the story is just, well, either way, if there's a monster, we have to fight it. So, that's the book. It's really short. It has no ending yet. It's just like the beginning first act, I guess. I think when I planned it out, I was planning on having the dad be involved in some way, like he created the monster or something like that. But that might have been a few years later when I revisited this story. Overall, this was a rough read. Sentence structure was bad, grammar was bad, word choice, description, all of that was not great. I mean, I guess for however old I was 7 years ago, it wasn't terrible, but compared to my writing now, I've definitely improved in both dialogue and description. Oh, speaking of that, there was no dialogue for the first, half of the story. It was all just talking from the narrator's perspective, which I know can be a stylistic choice, but it did not work in this aspect because there was no real action. It was all just not trauma dumping, info dumping. Yeah, it was all just info dumping. Just a bunch of context and background and all that, and it really didn't need that. So there you have it, the first book I ever wrote, or attempted to write, because I did not finish it. If you're interested in seeing some of my newer writing, I posted a video talking about the first chapter of my new ghost story that I'm working on, and also I have another novel coming out next year that is hopefully a lot more enjoyable and easy to read than this story. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.